Guitarists everywhere, regardless of genre, are united by one simple thing: wanting gear they don't actually need. They seemingly want to pay a premium for a sound that could be achieved with a free VST or a $30 pedal. They want to pay thousands upon thousands of dollars for a guitar made in California or Maryland that gets outplayed by a $350 slab of wood from China. They want to pay thousands of dollars for a pedal with a centaur on it. I could go on. Now listen, I'm not really a grunge guy, but something Kurt Cobain got right was using shit-ass pawn shop gear and recording in dungeons. Ugly gear. Bad gear, so to speak. And listen, it's not even the boutique gear, the expensive gear is bad. I myself have a guitar that costs over $1,000 and some pricey pedals. But the backbone of my tone is a $250 solid state amp from the 70s and a $30 Behringer fuzz pedal. So, like, you know, man. Most of your favorite albums were actually recorded on dog shit equipment. Tony Iommi used a jacked up SG and a jacked up Strat for the first Black Sabbath record, and Geezer used a guitar amp because he couldn't afford a bass amp. And that whole thing was recorded in like 2 days. Slash used to knock off Les Paul and Appetite for Destruction. A Chibson. Yeah, a fake Gibson. For, you know, the most iconic Les Paul album of all time. Blah, blah, blah. You know, like, come on, man. Just Oborn used an Epiphone SG to record Dope Throne. And if you want to talk about Dope Throne, you can actually look up a little video on YouTube of them recording that in the studio. That place was recorded in a fucking dungeon, dude. My point here is, many classic albums were recorded on garbage in hovels and dungeons and barns. Literally barns. Expensive gear is almost a scam at this point. You get what you pay for. Don't get me wrong, but it's only up to a certain point. Because you see, there exists a thing called the law of diminishing returns. And what that means for a guitar is basically the price of a guitar goes up, right? Just like straight. But the quality goes up, but it plateaus eventually, right? So, for a practical example, a $5,000 Gibson Les Paul Custom will not be 10 times better than a $500 Harley Benton Les Paul Custom, right? You know, it's probably going to be better. Maybe twice as good, maybe 3 times as good, you know, whatever that even means. What does good mean in this point? But that's a question for a philosopher. What we're getting at here is, you know, 10 times the price doesn't mean 10 times the quality. In fact, I know certain people who would probably argue that the Harley Benton is better than the Gibson. And I mean, you know, for the price difference, for what you're getting, I can't really disagree all the time, you know, man. Seriously, Gibson makes some stinkers sometimes, dog. And the same thing goes with amps, in my opinion, even more so. Any amp can be made to sound good, or at least good enough. Because one, how an amp sounds is completely contextual, right? What sounds really good with like prog metal won't work for garage rock or black metal or nu metal, right? Same thing goes with like doom metal. Like a doom metal tone is fucking trash for like, you know, shred metal or like, you know, Melodeath or anything like that. So, the point there is, every amp has its place, and it can be made to sound good, or at least good enough. And you would be amazed how good enough can be. Here's an example. For Dope Smoker, right? Matt Pike, you know, he used big stinky Matt amps and green cabinets, and those are expensive. They blew thousands of dollars on amps and equipment for Dope Smoker, right? But something he used to track other guitar parts was a pig nose. And that's a tiny little combo amp from the 70s. And they're quite affordable. Even today, they're only a little over $100, right? So that tiny little dinky thing helped make Dope Smoker. Having played live and having seen plenty of local bands live, I know firsthand how cheap gear can absolutely bring down the house. You know, I've seen venues shredded with just a mic'd up little 1x12 and a Squire, right? It's possible. I've had multiple sound guys mistake my old Orange Crush Pro 120, the solid state head, for a full fat valve orange amplifier that cost thousands upon thousands of dollars. And you bet I always had the shit-eating grin on my face when I told him it was solid state and cost me $450. Some of my favorite pedals ever are the Behringer HM300 and SF300. These are clones of the Behringer HM2 and FC2 respectively. And to be perfectly frank with you, I think they're better. I think they sound better than the Boss pedals. And Boss doesn't really make those pedals anymore. I think they make Wazacraft versions of both, but nah, I will take the Behringers. I think they sound better and they're cheaper. Way fucking cheaper. Orders of magnitude cheaper. Speaking of better, what I mean by better is pretty simple, right? The quality of a more expensive instrument will, likely, be better than that of a cheaper one. But it matters by how much, like I was talking about before, law of diminishing returns. So what better really means in this context, right, is that it would be more efficacious to buy the cheap gear, because the cheap gear will sound either only a little bit less good, as good, or better. And by sound, you can replace that with play, feel, whatever you want. It'll be either a little less good, as good, or in a lot of cases, not every case, not even a majority of the cases, but just more than you'd think, better than the expensive version. You know, cheaper guitars and amps are better just because they're easier to get and way easier to replace. You know, and you can pick them up anywhere. You can't get a Gibson Les Paul Custom anywhere, but you can get a Squire Bullet Strat anywhere. You know, you can't get a Thunderverb anywhere, but you can get a shitty little fucking, I don't know, Boss Katana anywhere. And as far as quality control goes, cheap gear has really good quality control now. I'm gonna just be frank. China is pumping out heat. Like, it's insanely good. A lot of the times better than the real big boy gear, to be perfectly frank with you. Gibson. Think about it like this. Say you have $5,000 to record a record, which isn't much, but it's, you know, pretty standard budget, pretty high budget for a local band, right? Say you want to get a new guitar and amp, right? If you spend $2K on the guitar and $2K on the amp, that's $1K left to record the record. And at that point, it's not going to be a record, kid. It's going to be an EP, right? That's maybe like 2 or 3 songs at any actual studio. Not that cheaper beginner recording artists can't do it well, but like, for intents and purposes, you're going to a real studio here, right? $1,000 is nothing. You're going to get a shit EP. But if you only spend a few $100s on the guitar and amp each, you'll have thousands of dollars left to make your boring record. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that better? Goddamn. At the end of the day, all that matters is the sound coming out of the speakers. You know, use whatever gear you have. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you use it well and with passion. Don't listen to the chuds, boomers, whatever, who go on and on and on about tone wood or fancy pickups or, oh, it's made in Japan or USA or Korea. It doesn't fucking matter. That's knuckle-dragging boomer bullshit. Alright, let's go over the gear I'm going to be using real quick. We got this little Epiphone SG G400 from around 2010 with $30 pickups in it for the set, so you can't even complain that they're aftermarket. Cope. An orange Crush 20 that I beautified. And a Behringer SF300 on mode 1. We're going to be switching between mode 1, 2, and boost throughout the demo. Those are the tone controls. And here are the tones on the amplifier. And without further ado... Oh, this is the microphone. Sorry, there is some more ado. It's just a Tascam USB mic. So now, without further ado, let us doom. Plus, the less you spend on gear, the more you can spend on weed. Groovy out.